If you choose me, you choose us all, a human's promise to 3 alien sisters. The unexpected arrival. The stars never looked the same after the engine failed. Darian Cross gripped the controls of his cargo vessel as it spiraled through Azeratha's atmosphere, the planet's violet sky swallowing him whole. Alarms screamed. Metal groaned. Then everything went silent as the ship plowed into crystalline sand, sending up clouds of shimmering dust that caught the light of twin suns. When consciousness returned, Darian found himself staring at 3 faces unlike anything he'd seen in 5 years of space travel. The first belonged to a woman with midnight blue skin that seemed to shimmer with hidden constellations. Her silver eyes held the sharpness of drawn steel, and her posture radiated controlled power. She stood closest, one hand resting on the hilt of a curved blade at her hip. "He breathes," she announced, her voice like distant thunder. "Barely," replied the second woman, already kneeling beside him. Her skin was a softer shade of lavender, and her hands moved with practiced precision as they examined his injuries. Golden patterns like living vines traced along her arms, pulsing with soft light. Her touch was gentle, clinical, yet somehow comforting. The third sister leaned over the healer's shoulder, her aquamarine skin bright with curiosity. Paint stains marked her fingers and forearms in rainbow colors, and her expression held wonder rather than suspicion. A human. Look at his strange coloring. Is he beautiful or odd? I can't decide. Both, Raina, the healer said with a slight smile. As are most things worth noticing. Darian tried to sit up, but pain lanced through his ribs. The warrior woman, Nessera, he would later learn, placed a firm hand on his shoulder, pressing him back down. Stay still, Skyfaller. Your vessel nearly became your tomb. Her gaze swept over him with tactical assessment. You're fortunate we patrol this coastline. Where am I? Darian managed, his voice rough. Our home, Talon the healer answered, her hands already weaving something that looked like light between her fingers, some form of medical technique he couldn't comprehend. The question is whether you'll be permitted to stay. Raina sat cross-legged in the sand, studying him like he was a particularly interesting sculpture. We'll have to decide together. That's our way. Decide what? Darian asked, confusion mixing with the pain. Nessera's expression remained impassive. Whether you're worth saving completely, human. We 3 share everything, our home, our resources, our decisions. If even one of us finds you unworthy of sanctuary, you'll be sent to the mainland settlement once you're healed enough to travel. No second chances. He tried for a smile despite the circumstances. We are not separate beings who can be won over individually, Talon explained, her healing light sinking into his damaged ribs with warm relief. We are a unity. To gain the trust of one means nothing if the others remain unconvinced. Raina grinned, showing teeth that were slightly sharper than human norm. So you'll have to charm all 3 of us, Skyman. Think you can manage that? Darian looked at each sister in turn, warrior, healer, artist, so different yet moving around each other with practiced synchronicity. Something in their collective presence stirred something deep in his chest, a recognition he couldn't name. I suppose I'll have to try. Learning their rhythm. The sisters' dwelling was carved into coastal cliffs where waves sang against black stone. Darian's recovery room overlooked an ocean that shifted between emerald and sapphire with a changing light. His ribs were healing faster than any human medicine could manage, thanks to Talon's treatments. On his 3rd morning, Nessera appeared at dawn, carrying wooden practice weapons. If you're strong enough to walk, you're strong enough to train, she announced, tossing him a staff. On Azarath, everyone contributes. Show me what a human can do. The session was humbling. Nessera moved like water and struck like lightning, countering his every attempt with effortless grace. But she never humiliated him. Instead, she adjusted her teaching to his abilities, her respect growing each time he rose after being knocked down. You don't quit easily, she observed, a hint of approval in her voice. That matters more than skill. Sweat-soaked and exhausted, Darian grinned. Where I come from, stubbornness is practically a survival trait. Something flickered in Nessera's silver eyes, amusement, perhaps, or the beginning of respect. She extended her hand to pull him up, and their fingers lingered together a moment longer than necessary. Afternoons belonged to Talin. She took him into the terrace gardens where bioluminescent herbs grew in careful patterns. Her knowledge was vast: which plants healed, which poisoned, which brought dreams or clarity. "Your people use chemistry," she said, crushing leaves to release their fragrance. "We use resonance. Every living thing carries a frequency. Healing is finding harmony." Darian watched her work, fascinated by the golden patterns on her skin that brightened when she concentrated. "And what frequency do I carry?" Talin met his gaze, something warm and searching in her expression. Something unexpected, chaotic but genuine, like a song in an unfamiliar scale that somehow still moves the heart. Their hands brushed as she passed him a bundle of herbs, and neither pulled away immediately. The air between them felt charged, full of unspoken possibilities. Evenings were Raina's domain. She'd claimed the western terrace as her studio, where she captured Azaratha's twin sunsets in pigments that seemed to glow from within. She insisted Darian sit for a portrait, though she spent more time talking than painting. "Tell me about human love," she asked one evening, her brush dancing across canvas. "Is it true you only bond with one person at a time?" "Usually," Darian admitted, watching her work. "Though it's not always that simple." "How lonely." Raina's voice held genuine sadness. "To have a heart that can only hold one other. Don't you feel incomplete?" "I never thought about it that way." He considered her question carefully. "But maybe that's because I never knew there was another way." Raina set down her brush and came to sit beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "We've shared everything since birth. Joy is tripled, sorrow divided. Each sister makes me more myself, not less." "I'm beginning to understand that," Darian said softly. She smiled, resting her head briefly on his shoulder, a gesture of casual intimacy that sent his pulse racing. "Good. Because if you can't understand us, you can't truly be with us." At night, they gathered for meals around a low table where the ocean breeze carried salt and strange spices. Darian learned their rhythms: how Nessera always served the food, how Talin blessed each meal with quiet words, how Raina made them all laugh with stories and observations. He also noticed how they touched each other constantly: a hand on a shoulder, fingers brushing hair from a face, comfortable embraces that spoke of absolute trust. They were separate people, yet somehow a single organism. "You're quiet tonight, Skyman," Nessera observed, passing him a dish of roasted vegetables that tasted like starlight. "Just thinking," Darian replied, "about how different you are from each other, yet how perfectly you fit together." "Like a blade, a bandage, and a brush," Raina said with a playful smile. "All necessary, none sufficient alone." Talin's golden patterns glowed softly in the lamplight. "And you, Darian? What are you?" He met her eyes, then Nessera's, then Raina's, feeling the weight of three different gazes that somehow felt like one question. "I think I'm still figuring that out." "Good," Nessera said, the corner of her mouth lifting slightly. "Certainty is overrated. Growth requires uncertainty." That night, lying in his room with the ocean song drifting through the window, Darian realized something profound and terrifying: he was falling for all three of them. Not as separate attractions, but as a single, overwhelming feeling that encompassed their unity. He just didn't know if his human heart was capable of loving that way. The growing connection. The fourth week brought the festival of twin moons, when both satellites rose full and silver over Azaratha's ocean. The sisters invited Darian to join their private celebration on the highest terrace, where the view stretched endlessly. Nessera appeared in ceremonial armor that caught moonlight like captured stars. The warrior's usual severity had softened into something almost playful as she demonstrated traditional combat dances, movements that were half battle, half ballet. "Try it," she challenged Darian, her eyes gleaming with mischief he'd never seen before. He stumbled through the steps, laughable compared to her grace, but when he nearly fell, Nessera caught him. They stood close, her hands steady on his arms, both breathing hard from exertion. The moment stretched, charged with electricity. "You're learning," she murmured, and there was something in her voice beyond mere approval. "Not just the movements. You're learning to trust." I trust you, Darian said simply, and watched something shift in her expression. Defenses lowering, revealing vulnerability beneath the warrior's mask. Nessera's thumb traced along his forearm, a gesture so gentle it seemed impossible from someone so fierce. That's dangerous, human. Trust can become something deeper. Would that be so terrible? Instead of answering, she pulled him back into the dance, but now their movements felt less like practice and more like conversation, a dialogue spoken in motion and touch. Later, Talin led him to the Moonflower Garden, where night-blooming plants released intoxicating fragrances. Her healer's hands worked among the blossoms with reverent care. These flowers only open under both moons, she explained, her voice soft. They require perfect conditions, the right light, the right temperature, the right moment. Force them, and they wither. Darian understood the metaphor. And people? Do we also need perfect conditions? Talin turned to face him, golden patterns glowing brighter in the moonlight. We need authenticity, patience, willingness to be vulnerable. She stepped closer, until he could see flecks of amber in her lavender eyes. Tell me true, Darian, what do you feel when you look at me? His heart hammered. Wonder. Admiration. A connection I've never experienced before. And my sisters. The same. All three of you. He forced himself to meet her gaze. Is that possible? To feel this way about all of you without diminishing any of it? Talin's smile was radiant. On Azurath, it's not only possible, it's expected. Love here doesn't divide. It multiplies. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw with feather-light touch. But for humans, this is foreign. Strange. Perhaps frightening. Terrifying, he admitted. And exhilarating. She leaned in slowly, giving him time to retreat. When he didn't, her lips brushed against his in a kiss that tasted like moonflowers and promises. It was gentle, exploratory, yet intense enough to make his knees weak. When they parted, Talin's eyes searched his. That wasn't just curiosity, was it? No, Darian breathed. It was real. Good. Because we only accept what's genuine. Rayna found him on the eastern terrace, where she'd set up canvases to capture the twin moon's reflection on water. Paint covered her hands, her arms, even a smudge across her cheek that made her look impossibly endearing. Sit with me, she invited, patting the cushion beside her. I want to paint how you look under double moonlight. But when he sat, she set her brushes aside, studying him instead of the canvas. You're different than when you arrived. Softer somehow. More open. Your home does that, Darian said. You three do that. Rayna's expression grew serious, a rare thing for the usually playful sister. Darian, I need to ask you something important. When you look at us, do you see three separate people you're trying to please? Or do you see us as we truly are, one heart beating in three bodies? He considered carefully, knowing this answer mattered. At first, I saw three individuals. Now I see how incomplete that vision was. You're like a painting where every color matters. Remove one, and the whole composition fails. Perfect answer, Rayna whispered, then pulled him into a kiss that was nothing like Talin's gentle exploration. This was fire and passion, playful yet intense, her fingers threading through his hair as she pressed against him. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Rayna laughed, a sound like bells. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Only weeks. Darian managed, his world still spinning. Well, days. Many days. She traced his lips with her thumb. But we had to be sure. All three of us had to be certain. Certain of what? Rayna's smile turned tender. That you could love all of us. Not as separate conquests, but as we are, unified, complete, inseparable. I think I already do, Darian confessed, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. I just don't know if I'm capable of. Sure. She pressed a finger to his lips. You don't have to know everything tonight. Just be honest. Be here. Be willing. As the twin moons reached their zenith, The three sisters joined Derian on the highest terrace. They sat together, Nessera's strength on his left, Talon's wisdom on his right, Rayna's joy before him, and he felt something click into place in his chest. This wasn't about choosing. It was about accepting. About expanding his heart to hold something bigger than he'd imagined possible. "We have a question for you," Nessera said, her warrior's voice uncommonly gentle. Derian's pulse quickened. "I'm listening." Talon took his hand. "Are you ready to understand what we're truly offering you?" He looked at each sister in turn, seeing past their differences to the unity beneath. "Yes." Rayna's smile was radiant. "Then tomorrow, we share our truth. All of it." The test of truth. Dawn arrived with unusual stillness. The ocean held its breath, and even the morning birds seemed to wait for something momentous. Derian found the three sisters waiting on the central terrace, dressed in flowing ceremonial robes that shimmered like captured starlight. "Today you learn what it truly means to be ours," Nessera said, her voice formal yet warm. "And we learn if your heart can hold what we offer." Talon gestured to an intricate circle carved into the stone floor, ancient symbols that seemed to pulse within a light. "This is the circle of unified hearts, where Azurati bonds are forged. Step inside only if you're certain." Rayna's usual playfulness had given way to solemn intensity. "Once we begin, there's no halfway. You accept all three of us completely, with every joy and challenge that brings, or you walk away with our blessing but never return." Derian's throat was dry, but his resolve was absolute. He stepped into the circle. The sisters joined him, forming a square with him at the center. The symbols beneath their feet began to glow brighter, responding to their combined presence. "On Azurath," Talon began, her healer's voice carrying ancient wisdom, "we believe love is not a finite resource to be rationed. It's an infinite ocean that deepens with sharing. Our bond as sisters is sacred," Nessera continued, her warrior's strength evident in every word. "We've never allowed anyone into our circle. Not in 30 years of life. You would be the first. And the last," Rayna added softly. "Once bound, we're bound forever. No secrets, no favorites, no hierarchy. 4 hearts beating as one." The circle's light intensified, and Derian felt something like warm honey flowing through his veins, their collective energy, testing his capacity to receive it. "Tell us," all three sisters said in perfect unison, their voices harmonizing impossibly. "What do you offer that makes you worthy of this gift?" Derian closed his eyes, reaching deep for truth. "I offer honesty. I'll never pretend to feel what I don't. I offer respect, for your bond, your culture, your individual spirits. I offer growth. I'm willing to become more than I was, to love beyond my limited understanding." He opened his eyes, meeting each sister's gaze in turn. "And I offer my whole heart, not divided into thirds, but given completely to each of you and to the unity you create together." The circle blazed brilliant white, then settled into a steady, warm glow. "He speaks truth," Talon whispered, wonder in her voice. "The circle accepts him." Nessera stepped forward first, removing the ornamental blade from her hip and offering it to him. "I give you my protection, my strength, my loyalty. Do you accept?" "I accept," Derian said, taking the blade with trembling hands. "Then accept this too." Nessera pulled him into a kiss that was fierce and tender, claiming and surrendering simultaneously. Her hands cupped his face with surprising gentleness while her lips moved against his with passionate intensity. When they parted, she pressed her forehead to his. "You're mine to protect now. Always." Talon approached next, carrying a small vial of luminescent liquid. "I give you my healing, my wisdom, my care. Do you accept?" "I accept," Derian breathed. She daubed the liquid on his forehead, his lips, over his heart. "Then accept this." Her kiss was slower, deeper, a healing meditation that seemed to reach into his very soul. Her body molded against his as her hands traced patterns on his back that made energy sing along his spine. "You're mine to nurture now. Always." Rayna came last, her eyes bright with unshed tears of joy. She carried nothing but herself. "I give you my joy, my creativity, my dreams. Do you accept?" I accept, Darian said, his voice rough with emotion. Then accept this. Her kiss was playful yet profound, tasting like laughter and promises and infinite possibility. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing close enough that he could feel her heartbeat against his chest. You're mine to delight in now. Always. The three sisters joined hands around him, completing the circle. The light rose to encompass them all, warm and welcoming. Now you speak your vow, they said together. Darian's heart felt too large for his chest, too full of wonder and love and terrified joy. I, Darian Cross, vow to honor your unity while celebrating your individuality. I vow to love with courage, communicate with honesty, and grow with humility. Your joy is my joy, your pain is my pain, your bond is now my home. He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle in his soul. I choose all of you, completely and forever. The circle exploded into brilliant light, then dissolved into countless sparks that drifted upward like inverted stars. When Darian's vision cleared, he felt fundamentally changed, as if invisible threads now connected his heart to three others, creating a web of belonging he'd never imagined possible. It's done, Nessera said, awe in her voice. We're bound. The sisters led him to their private chambers, a space he'd never entered before. It was beautiful in its simplicity, a large circular bed covered in soft fabrics, walls painted with Rayna's murals, shelves holding Talon's healing tools and Nessera's weapons. Everything spoke of shared life, shared love. We've waited for this, Talon said softly, her golden patterns glowing with emotion. For someone worthy of joining our circle. Rayna took his hand, guiding him to sit on the bed's edge. There's no script for this. Just feeling. Just truth. What followed was tender and overwhelming, a symphony of connection that honored both passion and reverence. Nessera's fierce gentleness, Talon's knowing touch, Rayna's playful intensity. Each sister brought a unique gift to their union while maintaining the sacred harmony that defined them. They moved together like water finding its course, natural and inevitable. Whispered words of love mingled with gasps of pleasure. Hands explored with reverence and desire. Bodies joined in configurations that felt both foreign and perfectly right. Three becoming four becoming one. Through it all, Darian felt the bond between the sisters, strong as titanium yet flexible as silk, and marveled that they were weaving him into that ancient pattern. He was careful to give equally, to meet each sister's eyes with love and wonder, to make certain none felt secondary or forgotten. You're crying, Rayna whispered, wiping tears from his cheek during a quiet moment. I didn't know, Darian managed. I didn't know love could be this vast. Now you do, Nessera murmured, kissing his temple. Now you're ours. Hours later, they lay tangled together, skin against skin, hearts beating in synchrony. Talon's head rested on Darian's chest, Nessera's arms encircled them both, Rayna's fingers traced lazy patterns on his arm. How do you feel? Talon asked sleepily. Darian searched for words adequate to the moment. Complete. Terrified. Blessed beyond measure. Good, all three sisters said together, then laughed at the unison. That will happen more often now, Rayna explained. The bond creates harmonies. I think I like that, Darian said, kissing the top of her head. As sleep claimed them, wrapped in each other's warmth, Darian sent a silent prayer to whatever forces had crashed his ship on this impossible world. He'd lost his cargo, his mission, his old life. But he'd found something infinitely more valuable, a love that multiplied instead of divided, a family forged in choice rather than blood, and three extraordinary women who taught him that the human heart was far more expansive than he'd ever dared imagine. Forever bound. 3 months passed like a dream made solid. Darian's ship remained in the crystalline sand, a monument to the accident that had brought him to his true home. The mainland settlement had sent repair crews, but Darian kept finding reasons to delay their work. You're stalling, Nessera observed one morning during their training session. She'd become gentler with him since the bonding, though no less skilled at knocking him on his back. Can you blame me? Darian said from the sand, grinning up at her. Why would I want to leave paradise? She extended her hand, pulling him up and into an embrace. Because you have a choice now. You could return to your people, your old life. We wouldn't stop you. Would you come with me? Nessera's expression grew complicated. Our bond doesn't require physical proximity every moment. But Azurath is our home. Leaving would be difficult. That evening, the conversation continued around the dinner table. Talin served a dish Darian had taught her to make, a fusion of human and Azurati cuisine that somehow worked perfectly. The repair crews say another 2 weeks, Darian mentioned casually. Then the ship will be flight ready. Rayna's hand stilled on her cup. And then? Then I have to decide, Darian said, looking at each sister. Stay here permanently, or return to finish my contract and come back. Either way, I'm not leaving you. That's not the question. What is the question? Talin asked, her healer's intuition sensing depths beneath his words. Darian took a breath. Whether I'm brave enough to ask you to formalize this. To make our bond official in human terms as well as Azurati ones. The sisters exchanged glances, communicating in that wordless way they had. You want to marry us? Rayna said, her eyes wide. All 3. In human culture, that's complicated, Nessera observed. Illegal in most jurisdictions. I know, Darian admitted. But this colony has some autonomy. And I've been researching. There are precedents, exceptions, legal frameworks that might work. He reached across the table, taking their hands. I want the whole galaxy to know you're mine and I'm yours. All of us, together, official. Talin's golden patterns blazed with emotion. You'd fight human law and custom for us. I'd fight anything for you, Darian said simply. The question is whether you want this. Whether it matters to you. It matters, all 3 sisters said simultaneously, then laughed through tears. The wedding took place on the summer solstice, when Azuratha's twin suns traced perfect arcs across the sky. The ceremony blended human and Azurati traditions, witnessed by the few colonists Darian had befriended and a delegation of Azurati elders who'd initially been skeptical of a human joining one of their sacred triads. Nessera wore armor polished to mirror brightness, every inch the warrior queen. Talin's robes incorporated living vines that bloomed with flowers during the ceremony. Rayna had painted herself with intricate designs that told the story of their love in color and symbol. Darian wore simple colonial formal wear, feeling painfully ordinary beside his extraordinary brides. But when the officiant asked if he took these 3 women as his wives, his voice rang clear and certain. I do. All 3, completely and forever. And do you 3 take this man as your husband, bound as you are bound, sharing as you share? We do, they answered in perfect harmony. The celebration lasted 3 days, Azurati tradition. There was feasting, dancing, storytelling, and laughter. There were also quiet moments when the 4 of them would steal away to the terraces, just to hold each other and marvel at the reality of their union. On the final night, they stood together watching the twin suns set in spectacular crimson glory. I'm staying, Darian announced. I've already sent word. My contract is void. This is my home now. You're certain? Talin asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. I've never been more certain of anything. Darian pulled them close, one arm around Nessera, another around Rayna. Talin pressed against his chest. You 3 taught me that love isn't about possession or limitation. It's about expansion, multiplication, infinite possibility. You taught us something too, Nessera said softly. That our bond could grow to include another without weakening. That 4 can be stronger than 3. Rayna kissed his cheek. You're stuck with us now, Skyman. No more crashing onto other planets, meeting other beautiful aliens. I wouldn't dream of it, Darian laughed. I've found everything I need right here. As the suns dipped below the horizon and the first moon began to rise, Darian felt the truth of his words settle into his bones. He'd come to Azurath by accident, a lost explorer seeking nothing but survival. Instead, he'd found 3 souls who'd taught him that the heart's capacity was limited only by imagination and courage. That love, real love, didn't divide attention like a finite resource. It multiplied joy, divided sorrow, and created something greater than the sum of its parts. He'd promised them everything, and they'd given him the same. For lives, now woven into one tapestry of shared purpose, shared passion, shared forever. The stars emerged one by one, witnessing their embrace. And Darian knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, cultural differences, legal complications, the simple daily work of loving across species and customs, they would face them together. Because he'd chosen them all, and they'd chosen him. And in that choosing, they'd created something the galaxy had rarely seen. A love that transcended worlds, traditions, and the limited imagining of what family could mean. Lessons from 3 hearts, 1 promise. Love multiplies, never divides. The heart expands to hold what it's brave enough to embrace, proving that authentic connection knows no arbitrary limits. True unity honors individuality. The strongest bonds celebrate each person's unique gifts while creating harmony greater than any single voice. Courage means choosing growth over comfort. Stepping into unfamiliar love requires vulnerability, but the reward is discovering capacities you never knew you possessed. Forever is built in daily choices. Lasting love isn't one grand gesture but countless moments of choosing presence, honesty, and commitment to those who hold your heart.